Jack has been punched in the face directly and dropped multiple times, alongside his skin being ripped off piece by piece, while Hanayama has been bitten, suplexed and dropped from the Hanma's strikes as well. A fight that right now could truly go either way and is without a doubt the most shocking so far in Baki Rahen. Yes, I know Pickle vs Jack round 3 wasn't close to what we were expecting and wanted, but I had the perspective going into it that Jack was going to dominate and without a doubt win that fight. Objectively, what happened, unless your bias is still blinding you to some degree, you have Pickle suplex comboed after facing multiple Gaodao bites and getting beat up throughout the fight, slammed on his head where he is knocked out. Jack is literally celebrating, walking around the arena, and while yes, Pickle appearing behind him was a shock, the Dino Boy proceeds to outright say Jack win. Yes, Pickle said those words in Baki Rahen. While for the current fight, Jack vs Hanayama right now, I was going into it with a similar belief, thinking Jack was going to dominate and win the fight without question. Perhaps some cool showings from the Yakuza, but now it's gotten to a point where either of them could claim this victory. Many Baki fans think Hanayama is going to defeat Jack here and change the course of this entire arc, with Hanayama's underling thinking the fight is almost over in the most recent chapter, which brings me to a recent comment on my review video which many of you agreed with. I think what Jack saw was in the last chapter, right when he wrapped around Hanayama's legs. You remember there was a panel right before he takes a bite where it shows Jack's perspective as he sees Hanayama's hands hanging down by his waist. I think Jack noticed some weakness within Hanayama, and while it currently looks like Hanayama has the upper hand, both he and his friend narrating may know Jack figured something out. The fight could still go either way, but I think the superior posturing of Hanayama is a red herring. I'll be surprised for Jack to be utterly embarrassed like this, especially in his own manga. So many people, including me, are of the belief that Jack isn't really going to lose until he faces, for example, Baki or Yujiro, due to Baki Rahen pretty much being his arc. The translation of Rahen that many people keep forgetting is more so Baki and others, meaning it doesn't outright say that someone like Jack is the protagonist of this arc, but if you're reading it, you can clearly see that Jack is in the focus. But of course, if we're being fair, it's not like the protagonists or focal characters in specific arcs can't lose. Just look at Sukune, Masashi Miyamoto, Baki many times throughout the series, when Ali Jr. took control of the story, and various other examples as well. So, this dude says, this is in regards to the most recent Baki chapter, Jack is literally straining himself, just like Yujiro did, to try stop the pain from the whip strike. So if you remember during the father-son fight, Baki used the whip strike known as Bender on Yujiro, which resulted in an entire chapter of the ogre doing stuff like this. Bender throughout Baki is described as like a durability negating technique throughout of Baki. In a sense, once it's used on the skin, anyone feels immense pain. That's why Baki can use it on people like Pickle to do major damage, and when Baki did that, we saw Pickle screaming in pain. But when Baki tried it on Yujiro, we had literally an entire chapter of the ogre doing this. So this guy pointed out in the most recent chapter, as clearly Hanayama's grip strength attacks on Jack involves the skin, him ripping it off piece by piece. He's pretty much saying that this stuff here, Jack's, goofy face in the most recent chapter, and of course this imagery, is pretty much Jack doing a similar thing to nullify the pain of Jack's, skin getting ripped off piece by piece. And yeah, I think that's pretty much what's going on. Of course, not to the same degree, because, Yujiro will always be Yujiro, and can't really get as insane as what's going on here with the veins. And I guess this highlights once again the reasoning behind Jack feeling such immense pain, something people continue to have a problem with. I guess attacks on the skin or involving the skin are the most painful throughout all of Baki. If the whip strike can force Yujiro to do stuff like this to, you know, not have an outburst of feeling pain. So Jack getting his skin ripped off, I guess is reasonable in the context of the broader Baki story. But this person pointed out all the exchanges of blows or what Hanayama has landed. For example, 3 punches, 2 flesh rips, and then Jack has landed 4 strikes, 3 kicks, 2 throws, and 2 Gaodao bites. Actually highlighting them. So Jack, of course, at the start of the fight, Hanayama landed that direct punch that sent Jack flying. Then shortly after that, Hanayama seemingly landed a more powerful one that, you know, had Jack thinking this is indeed bad news. Highlighting Jack already surviving 2 direct punches from Hanayama. And then after a few more exchanges in a recent chapter, Hanayama was able to counter Jack and land another one, which of course featured Jack getting dropped. So that's 3 direct punches to Jack's face. That is more than really any other character in the Baki world has survived from Hanayama. Even Masashi Miyamoto, after taking, I believe, 2 if I'm not wrong, was severely stunned and had to lock in, like bro was in danger. And then of course, the grip strength feats, him ripping his skin off, a seemingly counter to Jack's Gaodao, as Jack needs to be insanely close to Hanayama to land the bites, which also allows Hanayama to do stuff like this. But when he has done it, it has been quite casually, which is a little bit of a concern. Now when it comes to Jack, who has technically landed much more on Hanayama, which people tend to forget about, but I would say the amount of damage between the two is around even as it currently stands, as Hanayama's big wind-up punches are probably more impactful than one of Jack's quick jabs, even though they do clearly stun Hanayama in this panel as shown. Then the follow-up uppercut as well, then, you know, the slam into the suplex, which seems to be Jack's go-to so far in Baki Rahen, or at least definitely the case in the pickle fight. And since Hanayama doesn't really have that insanely thick neck pickle has, if Jack was to land the crazy suplex combo that he landed on Pickle, he should technically knock out Hanayama as well, so that could be something he goes for. But as we know in the most recent chapter, he did a similar thing, quick little jab, showing that in various situations Jack can outspeed Hanayama, but Hanayama can more so do the same. A very strange thing throughout the fight, where Hanayama's speed has been a lot faster than a lot of people's really expected. But it seems as though Jack has worked out that yes, he doesn't really need to rely on his biting. His crazy reach with his extra long limbs can land strikes and of course kicks like this from an insane range and, you know, piece up Hanayama with no problem at all. But the big question is, what is Jack really going to do if Hanayama grabs his foot here and like blows it up in the next chapter? Something I believe is very possible, or could be Jack just landing the strike. But considering Hanayama is, you know, not really that off guard in this scene, it seems as though Jack may be in some trouble. But of course, he has landed 2 bites thus far. The first one was around the bicep, upper shoulder, and then the second one was on the leg, which may have a bleeding out aspect in the future of the fight. Initially, we were told there's going to be like a 5-minute time limit, but we saw that the police and the specific policeman, Sonoda, is actually watching this fight, the one during the prisoner arc. It seems as though they're not really going to intervene until it's definitively over. So the comment we have here, this dude says, "I just know the author doesn't want his fingers gone when he punches Jack. Swear Jack is nerfed for the story here." So this guy's likely connecting to when Jack returned to the Baki story introducing his Gaodao, where he had that pretty impressive feat of countering Sukune's punch by taking his finger. In that scene, we saw pretty much Sukune's palm hit Jack's face, and in that quick instant, Jack was able to take one of his fingers. So in my original prediction video, when we got introduced to the start of Jack and Hanayama and got confirmed that they were going to fight, I was thinking a similar thing would occur, as Hanayama is known for those big wind-up punches. Attacks he's landed multiple times on Jack throughout this fight, so I was expecting a similar thing to occur, perhaps Jack taking one of his fingers, and is something he's done in the past as well. It wasn't really in the same context as the Sukune fight, but Jack did take fingers during the Maximum Tournament, and considering Hanayama's grip strength connects to his fingers to an insane degree similar to Sukune, I thought Jack would be doing a similar thing, and that may be what he's potentially worked out or going to do in the very next chapter when he does, counter Hanayama to a degree. But as we know, Jack is going for a kick next, so it's not really exactly set up currently. This dude said Hanayama fell on his back. Don't forget what that means. His tattoo doesn't allow that. Hanayama falling down is a bad sign. So this isn't the first time that's happened in the fight, an important thing to note. However, you could say, since Hanayama's clothing is still on, he hasn't technically revealed the tattoo. And you could say Hanayama is the most serious when he strips down, takes his shoes off, rips his suit apart, and reveals the tattoo. And since that hasn't happened so far in the Jack fight, maybe Hanayama isn't going all out. You could maybe argue that if you want. Perhaps bro is indeed similar to the Hanma family with their demon backs than a lot of people actually expected or remember, considering, the tattoo aspect he has going on. But you could say it's a similar situation to Pickle. He never entered his transformation against Jack, so maybe that will be occurring again. So this dude says, in my opinion, Hanayama has the most potential out of the Hanma bloodline in the Baki verse. He is like Frieza, already gifted but doesn't train to achieve his true potential. He is a force to be reckoned with if he put as much time to training as Baki, but sadly he is a Yakuza, and that's a life mostly, drug life, political stuff, you could say, even though we don't really get much of that from Hanayama, even though he is technically meant to be the leader of the Yakuza. It's a factor, but even in the guidance it's not that prominent, I would say. But coming back to Hanayama's potential, I agree with that. We're pretty much told this by Yujiro, so what Yujiro says is beyond canon, and if it wasn't canon prior, it becomes canon when he says it. Hanayama is similar to him, someone born strong and continues to grow in power. We see this throughout Hanayama's, childhood flashback manga, where he's just built different, already stronger than his dad is 6 years old, and all the other stuff going on with him. The training thing is argued about. We do have panels in the Masashi Miyamoto arc of him training or potentially training, but can't say for sure in regards to translations, and it's likely the case he doesn't particularly train, and is more so a character that naturally grows in power, which, if it is the case, he likely, potential-wise, is up there with, the Hanmas, or the closest to the Hanmas in that regard. And if you remember back during the Sumo arc, we did get a panel of them thinking about how strong Hanayama would be if he, trained in Sumo, the unmatched potential, unmatched height someone like Hanayama could reach in that regard, due to his physique as well. outside of just outright being built different and all those things considered. Other characters I would say that have been set up with insane potential outside of Hanayama is probably just Katsumi, who funny enough was the one to defeat Hanayama during the maximum tournament, so that's pretty interesting to bring up. But I'm still waiting for, Katsumi's complete evolution when he does get the chance to face Jack, which I do believe is going to be one of the most wild. And Katsumi's ranking within the Bakiverse is definitely going to be going up there and maybe even surpassing Hanayama like he did in the past, which, had circumstances around their fight, but Katsumi does have a lot of stuff going for him.